the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic means automatic, and it's thought to be the parts of the nervous system that just happen and that you don't have any control over. It's a total misnomer. It's one of the worst names in all of neuroanatomy, because you actually can control the autonomic nervous system. And we can talk about how to do that. We'll definitely get into that in a little bit later in this cast. But it says autonomic arousal stress. Yeah, so the autonomic nervous system is just this set of connections between the brain and body. If you take away nothing from what I'm about to say, just remember it's the connections between the brain and body. And the stress response, believe it or not, was designed to focus you. The stress response was not designed to make you uncomfortable, injure, hurt you, give you PTSD, none of that. Those are all cognitive interpretations about the stress response. The stress response was designed to focus your visual attention and your auditory attention to a particular location in space, and then for your body to follow what was going on in that particular location in space. So let's use an example where if you perceive something as a threat, your ability to track that threat visually and with your hearing is going to be heightened, just simply because of the way that the brain and body start communicating. Your body is going to be filled with things like adrenaline, and you're going to feel that as agitation. And we don't like that feeling of agitation, but we need to kind of pull back a layer on what we call stress and agitation. What we're saying is that it's a prerequisite to getting into flow, because it is, and understand why agitation. Well, agitation was designed to get you to move. It was designed to get you to do something, to move from whatever position and place you're in to a new position and place. Now, that could be by walking, by running, by writing, by thinking. But that agitation that you feel, and that if you start labeling it as frustration, like, it's not getting me where I want to go. When you get frustrated, you're giving that too much weight. You're asking yourself to teleport from California to New York. It can't happen. What you need to do is understand the agitation was designed to get you to move down a track. And Stephen has this great example, maybe you share it with us, Stephen, again, about in mountain biking, how when you drop into single track, I'm not a mountain biker, so I'm not familiar with this, but how your visual world can actually change by virtue of changing your physical world, your mental world, change your result of your physical world changing, and all those things kind of aligning. That just understand you're going to get that first gate is going to be fear, stress, anxiety, frustration. And your job is to move through it and collect something from that experience and move forward. But there's no way into flow without that.
Yeah, so it's a really common experience in mountain biking, and it was the experiment we were talking about running. So one of the things that's very common in mountain biking is you can be doing 50 miles an hour across an open field, just kind of be normal, and you're riding, and you drop into single track in the trees, and when your vision compresses wildly this quickly, it drives you into flow very quickly. And what the point I made when we were first talking about it, Andrew, and I'm not 100% this could be a Just So story, but my thinking was evolution designed flow. And if you think about the human brain, the fastest we can run 23, 24 miles an hour. If we're running down a mountain, maybe we can increase that 26, 27, but your feet are going to start to get ahead of you and gravity is going to pull you too fast and you're not going to be possible. So there's a lower point on that threshold somewhere where the brain goes, oh my God, you're running at top speed. You must be running towards a predator, towards something you want to eat or away from a predator. And you need peak performance at this moment, so it'll drop you into flow. And another way that happens is when frame rate goes by and suddenly things are passing by your eye very quickly, signal to your brain that, oh, wow, there's a lot of consequences, really have to dial you in, is what I was thinking. I want to reference one thing Rich said earlier, because I think he's right, and it's worth hitting on again, which is sort of the difference between a peak state like flow and optimal performance. And I always say my favorite day, for example, skiing or writing, is when I do something out of a flow state, completely out of a flow state, that I have done previously in flow. So I'll get into a flow state skiing, I'll level up my game, I'll be able to do stuff I've not done before in ways I haven't done it before. And then 2-3 weeks, maybe a month, 2 months of work go by, and I learn how to do all those same skills without flow. And there's usually a day when I'm tired and don't really have it and can't get into flow, but I managed to pull off everything I had done on the previous time with flow without flow. And I think that's one of the reasons we train, right? You train to be able to get into flow and then lay down the skills quickly in flow So you can use them in situations where flow isn't even possible, like you in the surf where it's freezing and it's just too grueling. Is my thinking on that.
One quick thing, I want to give Rich an opportunity to respond, but there was two questions popped up in the margins that I want to make sure that we're clear on our terms. A couple people said, wait, I thought the frontal cortex, which is involved in decision making, is really important for flow, and that stress shuts down the frontal cortex. The modern neuroscience literature tells us that stress does not shut down the frontal cortex. In fact, frontal cortex is invariably involved in the stress response, but it just like literally the optics of your eye changes when you have high levels of autonomic arousal or stress. You're able to track individual things and you're not able to see the big picture. You literally lose depth of field. It's like using portrait mode on your phone where the background is blurry. Your perception, your reality changes by virtue of changes in your eye. Your frontal cortex also becomes, there's a shift in the neural circuit so that you're able to think about specific things much faster, but you're not able to hold as many things in register at once. And this is, I think, your example of mountain biking and going from wide field to narrow track exemplifies that also, Stephen. So the frontal cortex, your ability to think clearly, is enhanced by stress, but the number of operations that you can carry out is reduced. And so it doesn't lend itself very well to multitasking. It doesn't lend itself to perspective and input across different time domains and things that we could talk about. But think about stress as narrowing your focus and constraining you, but it's a narrow tube that flows on the outside of that narrow tube, right? Or through that narrow tube. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the visual that we're kind of creating here.
If what you've heard on Flow Research Collective Radio has been helpful, please consider doing us a solid and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this. Reviews help us connect to a wider audience so we can get these peak performance principles out to more people.